This is Jimmy.
And Scott.
And this is the Lead Domino podcast powered by MDP Lacrosse. On this podcast, we will be discussing with athletes, coaches, and other professionals what specific mental techniques they utilize to prepare, compete, and recover. These are the questions that fascinate us, and we want to hear what our guests do to be their best mentally. And hopefully, you get a little something out of these episodes to help move you forward. On today's episode, we host Adam Rand. Adam grew up in Niantic, Connecticut, attending and playing lacrosse at East Lyme High School. Adam graduated from Stony Brook, where he played lacrosse and helped the Seawolves on an impressive run. In 2009 at Stony Brook, Adam was named the Division I Face-Off Statistical Champion. In Adam's senior year, he earned Honorable Mention All-American for his role at the Face-Off X. After college, Adam played in the MLL for 6 years, 1 year with the Lizards and 5 years with the Bayhawks, and won 2 MLL championships. Adam is currently in medical device sales, and we are lucky to get great insights on how important preparation is for sales, parents and their relationship with their kids, and his relationship with losing. Adam also owns and operates Shoreline Lacrosse in Southeast Connecticut. Shoreline Lacrosse is a club lacrosse program that provides clinics, training, and teams. To learn more about Adam and Shoreline, visit shorelinelacrosse.com and follow on Instagram at ShorelineLax. I had a blast with Adam today during this episode. Learned a lot. Hope you guys enjoy it. Adam Rand, welcome to the podcast.
Coach Montana, how you doing? Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being here. Really excited to talk to you. Let's just jump right in, though. Give us a little bit about your background, where you're from, what you've been doing, how'd you get to where you're at. We'd love to learn about you.
Excellent. That sounds good. I'll jump right in. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I grew up in southeastern Connecticut in a small town called Niantic. It's right on the Rhode Island border. Best landmarks are the casinos, Mystic, Connecticut, around that area. From a lacrosse standpoint, we're not your traditional hotbed, but I was very lucky and extremely fortunate to play lacrosse in high school and be recruited by you specifically to play at Stony Brook University, which was awesome.
I did go to your high school. I watched the game.
I do remember that.
I remember it well.
Hopefully it was a good game. So that was a lot of fun. That was actually the first, real interaction I had with you and, with Stony Brook. So I was sold on that point. And, I was lucky. I had 4 excellent years as a Seawolf, and I was able to further my career after and play in the MLL and achieve the ultimate dream of hoisting up the Steinfeld MLL trophy twice. So
did that twice.
Very good to me. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, and I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to play at Stony Brook. So it's been great.
The feeling's mutual. It goes both ways.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So, so now in your, let's say your post lacrosse life, you're in sales, correct?
Correct. Yep. So
okay.
After graduating from Stony Brook, I entered into medical device sales. I've been doing that for about the last 9 years, varying from surgical, orthopedics to working business development now regionally. So it's a great career. And, in addition to that, I've been able to follow my passion once lacrosse ended and playing. As a player, you always say, what am I going to do now? And, I was lucky to start a club lacrosse program actually right after college as well. And we've turned that into a nice club program in southeastern Connecticut called Shoreline Lacrosse.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you got a little bit of everything going on.
Very cool. It's a lot, but I enjoy it. Got to stay busy and always shoot to try and make these jobs and this business the best that I can.
Yeah. All right. So you're in your sales position. Let's say on a normal day, how much preparation goes into your professional day now?
That's a great question. And, the type of sales that I do right now, it's a long sales cycle. We sell, just to give you a little background, I sell a piece of capital equipment to psychiatrists for treatment of major depressive disorder. And, in my career so far, I've dealt with orthopedic surgeons, with psychiatrists, and every type of doctor is different in their buying personality. So, traditionally psychiatrists don't purchase capital equipment. They, the biggest purchase they've made in all honesty, is a really comfortable chair that they put in their office. It's true. It's amazing. And,
Yeah.
this type of product is a startup company. The technology is incredible. So, instead of, my old job of going into operating rooms and selling to doctors on the spot, this one, this takes time. It could be you need to prepare for a 6-month sales cycle. It could be as easy as, going out to dinner and getting someone to commit right in there. So preparation and, understanding who the customer is and making sure I put the work in so I provide them with the right information, that could take days, that could take weeks. And the key is to always be fully prepared on it.
Interesting. Right. So moving into the psychiatry realm and dealing with those types of doctors, how's your preparation changed?
Yeah, so preparation has changed with, basically the sales, the talk, the track talk with the customer.
Okay.
Because, it's important to, since they haven't really purchased a piece of equipment like this, but they believe in the technology, you really have to be able to tell a story. You have to be a really good storyteller to explain to them, why do they need this piece of equipment? It's on, the early stages of practices, really jumping into it. And, over time, eventually everyone's going to have this type of device. So if you get in on the ground floor right now, but you have to be able to convince them on, what their return on investment is.
Sure.
And how this is going to effectively treat their patients clinically and then economically.
Wow. Yeah. So you're sitting in your car about to walk into their office. What's running through your mind? And that little line of questioning I just threw at you is in my mind, and for this whole podcast series, is like, all right, Rand, you got your helmet on and you're in the tunnel and you're about to walk out on the field. Like, there's similar mental frameworks happening. There's similar mental techniques going on, right? So,
yeah.
So you're about to go into a big sales call.
To be honest with you, I just got some chills right there, hearing your voice and get the helmet on and get out there to play. Bring me back to the days of, getting on the field and going out there and facing off. But you're 100% right. And, if I'm in my car and I've got a meeting in 15 minutes and I'm not prepared, if I don't research my customer in advance, if I don't understand, who they are, what are their patients like, what type of practice that they have, I'm not going to be prepared, and I'm going to go in there totally blind and create a greater opportunity for failure. So, I look at, in my approach, and I've learned over the years within different companies that I've worked for, that it's so important that I take my background in athletics and preparation, setting goals, believing in what I'm doing, and then really researching it and understanding and mastering my craft. That's what provides me with the preparation. So when I get into that meeting, I have the confidence. If I walk into a meeting unprepared, there's no confidence.
Right.
There's no confidence. I can tell you right now, one, I probably lose my job. Two, you're not going to get the sale. And, confidence is key, but I've always believed that you're going to gain that confidence by being fully prepared, by, learning from your losses, by believing in what you're doing. And when you have your plan and you're strategic at it, you'll win. You just have to prepare and you have to be mentally focused on it.
Yeah. And I'm assuming there's no fooling a psychiatrist either with your confidence. They're going to see right through you within seconds.
They will. And it's you're right. It's funny. The cool thing is, what do psychiatrists like to do? I mean, they're some of the best health professionals out there. They help people through the toughest times.
Oh yeah.
But they love to talk. One of the things that psychiatrists do and provide their patients is talk therapy.
Sure.
So, you walk into a customer in any field, whether you're selling lacrosse equipment or you're selling this type of system, these guys are going to talk to you. They're going to give you that hour of time and they're going to listen to you. So you have to be prepared to be able to ask them the right questions, but also have a great conversation knowing that you're going to get the time from them. And that's rare in sales, where you have a call point that is going to sit there and provide you with the time to speak with them and really explain what you're trying to, provide them with.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, someone who really understands psychotherapy, you're trying to sell them. It's kind of funny to even hear that. Like, oh, I got to sell this person on why they need a piece of equipment, yet they're really trained in how the mind works. And, I guess you want to call them sales techniques or things like that, but I'm sure they're on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to treat. One of the things I've learned is you gotta make sure you're not just a sales rep. You've got to be a consultant when you're in there, and
Yep.
you also have to know who you are. My education is not in. I didn't go to school to become a doctor, so I'm not going to be talking on their level from that standpoint. But I will be a professional in
Right.
what I'm providing them, and
Right.
as long as I know that difference there, I think that correlates in sports too. I as a face-off guy, I knew when I was done in practice and I was finished with my reps and we were jumping into man up, man down, there wouldn't be a second where you guys would put me in on man up, man down, because I'd probably be a liability out there. So I think it's important to really understand what your strengths are and then, become very good at that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting that you bring that up, because I think there's also, I mean, now, even more so than when you were in college, it's more of a specialty. I mean, obviously you were at like the beginning stages, I feel like, for college lacrosse and even for youth lacrosse, for the whole FOGO, mentality and the training. Like, I think you were right. You were pretty much in the beginning of that whole movement, right?
Yeah, that was right in the beginning. And, the interesting thing about face-offs, and, I talked to a lot of my buddies, guys that are, doing really big things. Like you look at like the Greg Gorenlians and guys that are, they've taken face-offs and they've made it where it's a specific position in the training that they do. I think that when I came in with facing off, and I never had a coach learning how to face off. No one ever taught me how to face off. It was more of, I'd go to a camp or, I would use my dial-up internet at the time. It'd take me a half hour to, get a film on there.
Yeah.
Or like Andy Towers was, one of the best face-off guys back in the day.
Sure.
He had a write-up that was one page. I'm trying to remember where it was, but it was online if you search face-offs, and that was like my Bible. And I would read it. I didn't see any video on it. And then I was able to go on YouTube eventually, right when YouTube came out, and Paul Canabine, he had a film on how to train for face-offs. So, I would take that, and I found, from an early age, all right, I'm pretty good at this. There's really no one else specializing in it. I'm going to really focus in, and, kind of shooting in the dark, because there really wasn't anyone teaching it at the point.
Right.
But, I took an obsession of it where I said, I could be good at this, and I need to focus in, set my goals, and so forth. And then when I got to college, the crazy thing was each year, and I'm sure you remember this, every single year when I was facing off, the rules changed.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Being able to adapt that, when I came in freshman year, high school rules and Division I, college rules were different on the cadence. It was down whistle.
Okay.
And I had never done that before. And that was, you'd stand up, the ref would say down, and whoever could jump the whistle as quick as possible would win. And
Yep.
then when I went into as a sophomore, they changed the cadence again. And then as a junior, my sophomore year, I was using some techniques where it was kind of ground and pound and, maybe your elbow and certain things. And it was
tougher.
funny because I remember the rule book came out, and a lot of the things I was good at or that I used to my benefit were taken out, and they were now considered violations.
Yep.
So I had to adapt again as a junior. And, I found that was something that I also kind of obsessed about, where if I'm not preparing, if I'm not learning what these new rules are, then finding out what the techniques I need to do to get better at them, I'm not going to do well, and I'm not going to be able to perform.
Right.
So that was an obstacle, and I think that's transitioned now where face-offs, there's so much training out there, and there's so much competition on it. And
yeah, there's training, there's competition, there's a ton of access online, social media, YouTube, everything.
No, and when you look at it real quick, it's back in the day, there were great face-off guys, and then I would say the tier would be below that would be guys that, like a Kevin Crowley, you could stick someone in that would be pretty good,
Right.
and they could mix it up.
Yep.
Now you have excellent face-off guys because the amount of training that they're putting in, I mean, it's like anything else.
Yep.
The hours, the training, the skill set, where they're at a whole different level. And then you have good face-off guys. And then you have, very novice beginning ones.
Sure.
But the thing is, now the difference between good and excellent is huge. A good face-off guy is not going to probably have much success at all against someone who's really training and putting the time in now and studying
Right.
the position.
Right. And do you have an opinion on what makes the difference between good and excellent right now?
I think it comes down to the commitment put into mastering that
Yep.
position. What has changed, I think really what has only changed is the focus on the position. I think there's certain guys out there that actually have the ability to kind of, I don't want to say manipulate, but they have the ability to influence rule changes. And
Sure.
what's different about that now than it used to be? The biggest difference is that there's a bigger focus now on the position. I personally think if you want to become an excellent face-off guy, just like whether it was 10 years ago, 5 years, or now, you just have to you have to have a strategic plan.
Yep.
You've got to be committed to it, and you got to believe that you can be the best at it, but understanding what are the things you need to do in order to become excellent with the training, the dedication. And
Sure.
It's going to be harder now to become an excellent face-off guy than maybe it was 5-10 years ago.
Yep. Yeah, because there's more kids doing it.
Exactly.
And I think to your point, what you were saying earlier, when you were in high school and you decided, hey, well, maybe this is something I could be good at. I feel like a huge piece of the puzzle that gets overlooked is a kid taking pride in his role. Now maybe you're a kid who maybe, lucky enough you're able to choose your role depending on your high school team or your club team at the time. Or a coach says, hey Jimmy, I need you to play defense. It seems like in today's youth sports, the pride of bringing value to a team has to be learned, where it's not just like I want to play, and if the coach says I want to play defense, then that's what I'm going to do. And I think
you're onto something there, and I look at that and I analyze that a lot with the kids that are within my club program. We do a lot of consulting for youth programs in the area too. Because at points, and I'll be honest, Long Island's a totally different market than say southeastern Connecticut.
Sure.
Because you look at Connecticut and your Darien's, Greenwich's, those are a hotbed of Connecticut. You look at East Lyme and New London County, where our program is and where I grew up.
Yep.
That is the furthest thing from a hotbed, and we're trying to get it to that point. But it almost feels like that mindset and what you just mentioned digresses at a point where the coaches, the techniques at the youth program, the focus on evolving the training that you're doing from a youth standpoint is not necessarily diminishing, but it's just not there. And we found that need of we have to actually go, if we want our club to be successful, we have to go into the youth programs and really guide the youth directors, the coaches, on these mindset concepts of, the different types of mental aspects of the game. And just like you said, from face-offs, when I was in 8th grade, that's when I first really, or 7th, 8th grade, I started taking face-offs. I didn't realize that was great really until the next year. Tough player, played football. And then when I got to high school, I took a passion for face-offs. And you always want to have, I found when I was a kid, I always wanted to be great at something. And it was tough to get that gauge in southeastern Connecticut.
Okay.
But the second I went to, second I would go to a camp, or we didn't really have club teams then, but go to a camp, or you go to, I think I went down to like the Navy camp. I went up to a Dartmouth camp, and you get to face off against kids from, Long Island down, from Maryland and so forth, and you start beating them, kind of flips that switch, and all right, I'm good at this.
Right.
Now, where do I take this? Do I just want to be good, or do I want to be great?
Right.
And maybe this can take me somewhere, because my offensive skills are not great when I'm competing against kids from other areas.
Right, I got you. And that feedback's important. It's definitely important. And like if you're growing up in an area that doesn't have either talent or training or just numbers of kids that you can compete against, it's hard to really say, like, am I good? Am I not? Like, what do I need to work on? Maybe one move works at home, but it's not working here, so I got to figure it out and expand my arsenal and things like that, right?
Yeah, 100%. And, I think a lot of that, one of the things I credit, just my vision and overall focus for whether it's lacrosse, the business that I run, or my career, one of the things I'm grateful for was the support that I had from, my mother and father when I was growing up. They never pushed me, and they never had their own goals for me. I want to say from a point, they always wanted me to be successful.
Yeah.
But they didn't put the pressure on me where I needed to do this or had to do this. It was always, all right, this is what your dream is. Dream big, but you want to get there. You can do it, and we'll support you on it, and we have your back on it. And I think a lot of times now you see, it's cliche, but you see, parents trying to live vicariously through their kids without knowing it and or applying too much pressure to the kids, and they could be a great athlete.
Right.
But over time, that I think becomes an obstacle. And I see it in my program. I see it around locally where kids lose interest because they're so focused on the mental aspect. They're mentally drained because they're trying to impress their parents and they feel like they're never going to get there when they should really be focusing on themselves, their goals, and their vision.
Right. Well, I think part of that's expectations. If expectations are placed on these kids, and the kid at some point realizes no matter what he does or no matter what he or she does, it's never going to be good enough.
Yeah.
So I mean that mentally drains you. But then to your point about just being, having great parents, it comes down to like the balance of supporting your kid without making decisions for them. And I see it all the time with families I work with. When parents make decisions, not like in the best interest of the kid, but for the kid, that's when the kid starts to just tune out and just be like, well, anything I want or I care about isn't going to matter anyway. So
no, you're right.
That also adds to it. So if you could be a parent who support your kid and say, I don't care what you do. I don't care if it's the violin, lacrosse, chess, whatever it is. I support you, but you're making your own decisions.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think that's important. I also think there's a fine line there too, where it's important for, and I hope when I become a parent that I'll be able to take what I've learned with working with many, hundreds, thousands of parents here. Of you can and you should guide your children. You should. I personally think you should set them up for success. And there's right and wrong in certain scenarios. But being able to show them that, hey, if you, just like you said, you want to be a world-class chess player, do it. You can do it. Dream about it. Believe it. And we're going to support you. And, maybe this isn't the right way to do it. We can help you out and help guide you. But when you get there, you have to be able to make the decision for yourself that you want to be great at this. And you've got to believe in it. Because if you don't believe in it, it's not going to happen.
Right. No doubt. Yeah. Very true. And with my MDP training, which is like my individual stuff, I actually bring the parent is with us the entire time, right next to me during training. So, so it's either the mom or dad or both. They hear exactly what I'm saying to their kid, how I'm saying it, in what situations. And I tell them, you become my assistant coach and you're my eyes and ears when I'm not around. Because when you really think about it, the parents are with these kids a hell of a lot more than I am. They have access to me, but on average, I'm with a family 1 hour a week. We talk on the phone and text and stuff, but I'm like, you're my eyes and ears. You have to know exactly what my philosophy is, how I'm teaching your kid, so they become an asset to their kid, as opposed to sitting in the parking lot being like, how'd it go? And the kid's like, oh, good, and that's the end of it. So I bring them in, and I really try to educate them as I educate the kid.
That's excellent. That's something that's awesome. First off, and secondly, I think it's a key that you're coaching up the parents there.
Yeah.
And you're coaching the players. You're creating them as great advocates. They're able to learn the terminology. I think that's a fantastic approach. We do, like I was saying, I think earlier, we do youth consulting for some of our programs in our area, especially the program which I grew up in the town of East Lyme. We work very closely with them. And, every year we do a preseason consulting coaches clinics and players clinics.
That's
where
awesome.
We get them indoors. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And, we've learned from failures on, what works, what doesn't work. And we tried to fine tune it where, the clinics, we've gotten to the point where it's clinics for the kids, but it's just as equally as important for the coaches to be there. They're the coaches. We're facilitating. We'll do 5 weeks of it. They're all indoors, and they gain value. Where we're trying to figure out how do you gain retention of understanding what you're preaching to the kids, to the coaches.
Sure.
And how they can take that and implement that in during the spring season. But we're always trying to figure out, kind of what's the golden ticket? What are the little things that are actually important? And one of the things we implemented this year is it's just communication in terms that you should be saying within your practices. And as simple as it sounds, we were talking about, like one more, we were talking about, run through the line.
Sure.
Little things like that. And we put a list together. Here's 20 terms, 20 words that you should always be saying with, back your player up. within your practice.
Yep.
And then they start understanding, all right, verbally, this is how I should communicate. So they're not listening. Kids aren't listening to one thing a club coach is saying, one thing a youth coach is saying. But, I think parents want to help their kids so much. And I think what you're doing is extremely important, because now you're allowing the parents to learn. And they're learning so that they can guide the kids, their children, through that right path and get them to where they want to reach their goals.
Yeah, it's productive, it's efficient. And exactly what you're saying with your terms is exactly what I do. It just you're building a culture.
Yeah.
And it always starts with communication. Always.
100%.
Whether you're talking about what to say when you're open, or how to approach a kid in the car after a game. Like, it matters. And that's where the culture really comes in. So whether you're in a team setting or in an individual training setting, you can still create a culture. And to me, that's why the parents are so important. But yeah, I mean, it's always a puzzle, and each family, each team, it's a different puzzle, and you just got to figure out how to put the pieces together.
100%. It's a great way to look at it.
So, all right. So now let's jump a little bit back to what you're doing now in sales. Do you have anything in place, or your company, your managers, or whatever, have anything in place for after sales calls? Like, how do you debrief? How do you go through what just happened? Is there an actual system, or is it just something you do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think over the years you try and, without guidance, you try and figure it out yourself. You reflect, you write down, what went right, what went wrong.
Yep.
I've been lucky. My director that I have, he's been in the industry for years. He's worked with a lot of startups, and he's very good at being a mentor. And from his ability, one of the first things that he addressed when he had hired me, brought me over from my other company, was, you're going to have failures, you're going to have lost accounts throughout this career. You're going to have a very rewarding career. You're going to get a lot of different sales through. But the way to fine tune your craft and what you're doing, your track talk, is going to be in your sales process, is going to be based around those failures, those tough aspects, where you get rejected or where something falls through, a competitor comes in.
Yep.
What you do immediately after that call, and then reassess, take a deep breath, and write down, what went wrong, why did it go wrong, and then how do you address that and prepare so that it doesn't happen the next time.
Wow.
And, I think that's great that you brought that up, because that was something, I don't know if I took that as serious early on in my sales career. But when he started to explain that to me, I try to relate a lot of what I do back to, what I knew best. And that was training for athletics, training for lacrosse and facing off. And it correlates a lot with, losing or failing. You've got to be able to have a love-hate relationship with it, because if you get down on a loss and you feel sorry for yourself, you're never going to win. But if you find a way to, learn from it, adapt, adjust, and then find out what you need to do next time in order to fine-tune your process, you will win, and you will create a more effective game plan. So, with taking, athletics, but then taking what my director guided me on, that's something I use after every call. And if it's a great call, if it's, if I'm with a customer and I meet them the first time and they say, hey, I've never bought a $100,000 piece of equipment, but I want to buy it today because your story was great and I believe in you.
Yep.
You write down, how did you get to that point? And then you continue to do those good practices to create consistency.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And something you just touched on it, and something I talk about a lot with our athletes is, for the lacrosse aspect of it, it's like a game or your training or your season or even your career. It's like a poker game. And sometimes you got to fold a hand. Now, technically, folding a hand is a loss, but it's a loss that's going to allow you to play longer, right? So if you have a read on someone, they got me beat, I can't call this, I got to fold. Yeah, technically it's a loss, but it's big picture, it's not. Short term, yes. Long term, no. If I make this decision now and do it, then I'm going to be able to play longer, right? So it's like It's like mini losses in poker are a good thing. And a lot of young athletes look at mini losses as almost, complete failures. It's like, no. And to your point, like, you really don't become a good salesman probably until you get rejected a couple times, and it really forces you to focus on what's good, what's not so good, what can I add, what can I learn, and just have that mentality of always learning.
Yeah, learning's key, and something you'd mentioned earlier was what are the expectations you set for yourself?
Yep.
And I have players when I look at my club program that they might have an obstacle. They might go to a showcase that they've got a couple colleges that are looking at them, and they might just absolutely have the worst game. It could be a goalie; he could let in 15 goals. And to me, when I talk to them after, they might seem like it's the end of the world, but it's more so, what do you learn from that? How do you adapt? And then how do you go forward on it to show that you can adjust, you have a quick memory, but you're also able to take, all right, maybe I didn't have a great game right here, because not everyone's going to have a great game.
Sure.
But what do I do the next time when I'm playing in front of them to show them that I can come right back? And, something I've had a lot of people ask me, over the years, like, you must absolutely hate losing. And I remember this question came up in college. I don't know if we're talking about as a team, and they say you must hate losing. I used to have, and I still to this day, I have a philosophy. It's almost a passion. It's a little, some might call it weird, but there was a point where I started saying, I love to lose. I love to lose at the point because I hated it so much. And I hated the fact that, when I lost, it wasn't I'm going to go back to my dorm room and feel bad for myself. We go and play a team, and we play Hartford, and they've got Timmy Fallon, who's an incredible face-off guy, my arch nemesis, and I have a bad game, and we lose that game. Timmy and I are good friends now, but, that was something that I would spend, the next 6 months thinking about, and how am I going to prepare in order to beat him the next time? You were the guy that gave me the CD in my locker every single day, and, I think I probably had too many CDs that you burnt that were, face-offs from practice, face-offs from games.
Yep.
But I used to, where I learned that losing was important was when I was able to establish and find out that if I learn from what I'm losing, if I analyze and I understand and can critique and find out where did I go wrong, what is this person doing with slowing down the face-off, that if I put that plan together, put the work in, hit practice, and then practice it, study it, next time you hit the field and then it works, that's where I learned, all right, I can be a pretty good face-off guy right now. But if I want to become a premier face-off guy, I need to understand that I am going to have losses. But I have to figure out those quick. I have to understand how I need to create a new approach, and then be even more prepared the next game to minimize those so that I can win more.
Yeah.
And it was that love-hate relationship with it. And
interesting.
Like I said, I speak with players, and they say, I hate losing. I hate losing probably more than anyone. But I also love the ability to know that if I'm losing at something, there's no question that I can find a way to strategically change that and win the next time. So the more I lose early on, the more I can, or if there's a failure, the more I can take that and minimize my losses and increase my wins.
Well, it sounds like we're just talking about the feedback loop again. If you're not losing, you're not getting any feedback. So that could breed complacency, or that could just mean you're the greatest in the world. But without feedback, you really don't know what's happening. So I think for young kids who talk like that, I think it's like a learned response, like that's what they're supposed to say. But obviously you've lived in the trenches for so long and at the highest levels, it's like, no, guys, this is how real life works. Right?
Yeah,
and if you respect the competition, and I mean, I'm not saying just the guy across from you, I mean the art of competing. You're going to win, you're going to lose. And if you respect that, you can look at both honestly with a lot of self-awareness and understand, okay, this is good, not so good, this is what I need to work on, this is working for me, but I know it's not going to work against this guy just based on his, on his techniques and things like that. So it's about like finding respect in competition. So wins or losses are just like data points. They're not life or death.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's spot on right there. And, the aspect or the concept of respecting, I think I came in college as a freshman. I had no clue what to expect with, college lacrosse. I did very well in high school, where in my small region, I thought I was the best in the world. You win 90%, really cool. I get to college, I think the first scrimmage we had was against, Division I All-American. We played Syracuse, and it was Danny Brennan. And, that first scrimmage, I get in there. I'm like, all right, I can do this. And, I take 24 face-offs, and I think I won 3.
Yeah.
And that was a reality check where, it's kind of a crossroads for me, where it was, okay, I'm doing all right in practice. I just got smoked by the best. But if he beat me 21 times and I only won 3, how do I even grasp this first, take a deep breath, but then let me chip away at that? Either I take the approach of I can start to chip away at it. I still have to prove myself to get a starting spot. But the only way I can reach my, the goals I've set for myself is I need to take those 21 losses and bring those down to 3 or 4 losses. And I need to earn my spot, and I need to, learn from what's going on. So, yeah, I think, reflection, and you have to respect. I didn't respect, I think, the position or actually the level of play at the Division I level in that first scrimmage. And I had a pretty quick reality check and learning lesson of I need to respect this. Something I learned over my career is from when playing in college or playing professionally that, as much as I hate the other person across from me, whether, they're cheating or I'm cheating or whatever it is, who knows? I'm going into that face-off, and, I used to have a rule. I'm going to shake their hand beforehand. I'm going to make sure, see how they're doing. Kind of a psychological warfare game there where, you ease the tension. You kind of hope that they're going to calm down a little bit and you can catch them off guard. But respecting that, every person I went against, I, always respected. Yep. I respected at the point of, I want to beat the heck out of this person and I don't want to lose.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, shake hands and have a good day.
Right. Well, it sounds like you, as a true competitor, if somebody lined up against you and was like, I don't really feel like competing today. Like, that's disrespecting you, the game, the competition in general. So it's like, well, you don't want to compete against someone who doesn't want to compete either. Right? So
absolutely.
So technically preparing, lining up and giving it 100% of everything you got is like the first step in that respect. Oh, I need to respect this guy, so I got to give him everything I got. And I hope he gives me everything he's got.
100%. And, that's important. That was important to me on, the guys that I remember having battles with, excuse me, you had a lot of battles. You had a lot of battles. A lot of battles. Those were the battles where, I remember those guys. The ones where I would have a lot of success and, beat up on someone or they weren't,
sure,
get a high percentage. You forget those, but you remember the battles. And, I remember there was specific, next to East Lyme, about 15 miles away, there's a town, Madison, Connecticut. And they have a pretty good high school lacrosse and full athletics program. There's my junior year in high school, I think they sent like 11 kids. And you think about 10 kids on a roster starting, they sent 11 kids Division I. We played against a lot of those guys when we were at Stony Brook. And there was a player, their face-off guy, excuse me, that I competed against him for 3 years in high school. Yeah. And I could not get, I couldn't beat him. It was always, he'd beat me by this or that. And then, I remember freshman year we go through, and then sophomore year we played Delaware. He was already playing at Delaware. He was a year ahead of me. And we had competed actually freshman year too. But that sophomore year was the year it started to click for me.
Okay.
And I remember, this is now year 5 or 6 of going against this face-off guy. And we're down there. It's pouring, raining. We're down at University of Delaware. And his name was Tommy Lee. He was an incredible face-off guy. Yeah. And those face-offs, this is back in the day when you could sit down there and, you could literally just grind it out.
You've had some long matchups.
Oh, my God. We probably, and this is what I loved about the position, we probably had 25, 30 face-offs, and I think every single face-off was not less than, 20, 30 seconds. We had faces that were probably a minute long. And those were the battles I loved.
It shortened the game by a whole quarter.
Oh, yeah. And it slows. It was crazy because it's one of those out-of-body experiences where I remember, in like the third quarter or fourth quarter, we had taken a bunch, and you're down low, and I remember just looking up, and the ball's between our sticks, and like I would push, I would get it, he would push, he would get it, but we were so tired.
Yep.
I remember looking at him,
Yep.
and he looked so tired, and he probably had the same reaction of looking at me. And I remember we got the ball out, we're both running off the field. I think I'll say for the sake of it, we probably won it, hopefully. But we're running off the field, and I remember he goes and hits me right on the back, and he's like, "Man, this is getting crazy." He's like, and like those are the experiences where you learn to really, really respect competition.
Yeah.
You respect, you get that friendship. But then I also had, the type of relationship with a guy like Timmy Fallon, who, I look at it, him and I were battling for the top spot in the country for a statistical leader for face-off percentage, but we're in the same conference.
Yeah, right.
So, I go and think I'm great in sophomore year, first team all-conference. They didn't have all-American spots yet for face-off guys that year. But then junior, senior year, I might finish second. I think I was second and then third, however it worked out. I'm second team all-conference, and this guy's first team all-conference.
Yep.
And I would spend the full 12 months until we played Hartford again thinking about one guy, one game, one competition. And, you think about everything else that's in front of you in all the other games. But that was the fire that kept me going. And, at the time, did I, hate that matchup? Did I hate hate Hartford, so forth? I hate using that word.
Yeah.
But after we graduated and, we're both playing in the MLL, we ended up becoming very good friends after. And it was all from that mutual respect of the battles and the blood, the sweat, the tears that we had with each other. And it makes you realize how fun, how important athletics are, and how they mold you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's a shared experience at the end of the day.
Yep.
It just it bonds you, it brings you together, especially at your position, the game within the game.
Yeah.
Like our offense isn't scoring points without you winning faceoffs. And I mean, you go back to those Stony Brook teams, like we were putting up a lot of goals, and we were giving up some goals. So like you were busy, you were taking a lot of draws.
Yeah, I was taking so many of them. I realized I actually had to be in good shape, and I had to have some conditioning down.
Yeah.
We'd take 30 draws in a game, and we were lucky. We had such great offensive players between the Crowleys and McBrides and so forth.
Yeah.
And like you said, we'd let goals up, but we'd always score more goals. And
when you think of like a Stony Brook, like you were saying, like a Stony Brook Delaware game. Like I don't know what the average total goals were, but it was a lot of goals, which means a lot of face-offs.
Yeah, and those were something I would tell any face-off player out there. I mean, I'll be the first one to say I think that the new face-off rules, I think they've changed the rules a little bit too much.
Okay.
You look at them and year over year, they all start to come back full circle. There's always someone really dominating at the college or professional level. Yep. You're going to get like T.D. Erlin at Yale now, who's at Albany. I mean, you get Baptiste and so forth. The biggest concern I always saw, and I'd always look into this face-off guy, you see college coaches, I don't want to say complaining, but raising the issue that face-offs are, unfair. They dictate the game too much, and, it's just not fair, or it's not, an even playing field. Yeah. And I look at that and say, I think it's ridiculous. Recruit a better face-off guy or hire a better face-off coach, because no matter what, you see the schools that raise that issue, they find a way to end up getting a great face-off guy. And I don't think there's ever been, like, you look at percentages now versus percentages when I was playing. You got Alex Smith, who was before me, and then when I was playing, percentages were between, 60, 70% winning, which was high.
Yep.
It was almost more even and fair back when I was playing, and now you have 75, 80% winning percentages. I think it's great for the game with the focus that, you got like Face Off Academy and these companies and Xiaomi and all these guys are putting time into training face-offs.
Yep.
But I think now it really puts the spotlight on the position for youth coaches, club coaches, that if you want to be successful, high school coaches, college coaches, you need to dedicate time to training and training your face-off guy, or else you're going to run into the same issue that these coaches raise of there's so much difference and disparity between the top and then the middle of the pack face-off guys. And I don't think you solve that problem by implementing new rules every single year, because I had to deal with, a different set of rules every year.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
You shouldn't do that to the kids. Yes, they adapt.
Yep.
But I don't think I think they've solved a few things. I think, a guy like Grenlian does a lot of great things with, influencing different rule committees on how to change, what could work, what couldn't. But I think less is more for the position. I hate to say it, but they've almost made the position a little softer. I hate to say it like that, but
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely more finesse.
Yeah,
the rules are definitely more finesse. But I think it's also a point of contention because the sport's at a crossroads where you have, the older generation, which I would put myself in only because I played with like 4 horns on any the ball goes out of bounds on any line. You blew a horn, you make subs, like, that's foreign to a lot of people. But I took face-offs in college because I was big, fast, and athletic, not because I practiced facing off. So I'm in that generation, and really, like, probably my sophomore, junior year of college is when, like, the FOGO really started to kind of make a name for itself, which I was not by any means. But, you look back 15, 20, 25 years, it's like, let's just get an athlete, put him at the X, and let him play.
Yeah.
So you have people who look at that position from that perspective, or you look at, like your perspective, like it's an art form. People spend their time really trying to perfect it, and if you're not good, get somebody better.
Yeah.
So.
And, I love the benefit. I think, once again, I think I mentioned it has come a little full circle. There is, it is that chess match. You're countering, you're mastering your moves.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest benefits with a lot of the changes that have happened is it's created an opportunity for anyone to become a great face-off guy.
Yes.
You don't have to be, 5'11", 200 or 6 foot, 225 pounds, and go out there and beat someone up to face off.
Right.
You could be 5'8", 140 pounds soaking wet, but be the fastest guy and be extremely successful at what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely opportunities for kids.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think that's where it comes back to. Like, if you take pride in it, just like some kids take pride in being a goalie, and people look at goalies and be like, "What the hell are you thinking?" But if something clicks, you take pride in it, you spend your time on it, you get good at it, and then it'll take you somewhere. So, but that's some really good insights. Definitely some really good insights. I just want to touch back on one thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You were talking about like your mini losses and your relationship with winning and losing and things like that. Can you think of any time, let's say in your MLL career, where you had a couple losses, and I'm talking about face-off losses, not team losses. Face-off losses like in game. What was going through your mind, and how did you like get your stuff together to get back out there and then try to turn the momentum back in your favor? Do you do anything in particular?
No, definitely. There's a lot of times I can tell you, but one of the most memorable ones, and it kind of there's a little team aspect to it that I'll chime in on, but it was against we used to go up to play the Boston Cannons all the time, and if you played them at home, if I was down playing for the Bayhawks and we're playing them in Annapolis, great. Didn't matter. It was always a good matchup. Chris Eck was an incredible face-off guy. He was there for years. Very good at what he did. But if you go to Boston and you're playing up in the Harvard football stadium up there, the Coliseum they had, it was one of the most. I'm telling you right now, and I'm a New England guy, diehard Patriots fan, and support Boston. But I hated going to that stadium. I hated it and I loved it because there was a group of fans and. For the life of me, I can't remember what they call them, like the Boston Maniacs, whatever they were. But there was like 6 people that would sit behind the away team bench, and they would say the nastiest stuff to you.
Yeah.
And
I was on staff. I was on staff with the Lizards in the summer of 2012, and we played the Cannons at Harvard Stadium. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, they were awful, and it was actually kind of funny, but. You'd come running off the field. I was lucky when I was playing at that time with the Bears. I had a couple guys on that team, specifically like Brian Spallina and then Nicky Polanco, when I talk about teammates that taught me, the importance, how do you win a championship? It's about having your teammates' backs, but being, having that confidence, knowing that they actually do have your back.
Right.
I had those guys on the sideline, so that was always a good thing. I would come off the field because Chris Eck at that time was, he was the premier face-off guy, and he was the guy to beat. So you're up there in Boston, you're going and you're battling. So those were long face-offs, and it could have been 30 seconds, and then Chris goes and wins. You get back out there, wins again. You lose like 3 in a row. I remember it was like a fourth quarter. I think we were entering into the fourth. It was third quarter, and I think I lost like 3 in a row. But every time I came off the field, I'm listening to, and it was a lady too, and I like to think all women are very classy, but this nice individual behind me screaming, Rand, you're fat, Rand, you can't win, you're a slob, you can't win a face, all this stuff. And I'm looking over at Dave Cottle, the head coach, and he's laughing. And he's like, this is comedy. And then, I'm looking at my teammates, and, I see like the Nickies and the Bryants, they're yelling back at that. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Get that out of my head. I need to focus in, because what I was doing was I was going away from the ability of realizing it's okay to lose. At an early age, I grew up, and I tell this to every kid that I train for face-offs, if you win or lose the first 3 face-offs, it never matters. All right? Losing your first 3 face-offs are the most important face-offs in the game, whether you win or lose them, because you're learning what your opponent's doing. You're learning the cadence from one ref and the cadence from a second ref.
Sure.
And now you have 3 reps to evaluate what do you need to do to change.
Yep.
So I was forgetting that throughout that game, and it was miserable. And then you start second-guessing and you can't win. So I remember there was a reset point, and my focus from that point on was, all right, we're down a little bit here. One, I need to go win my matchup. But there's nothing more I want to do right now than shut those people up behind me and do it. So, I was able
a little
to
extra motivation
out there.
Yeah,
a little extra motivation, no matter what, and you was able to go out there, you win those extra face-offs. It's great. You weren't going to keep them quiet. I mean, they were still going to yell stuff at you.
Yeah.
But, those are times in games where you're going to deal, and there's many games I can think about like that where, you deal with adversity, and if you don't reset, especially at a position like face-offs or goalie, have a quick memory, and then get out to, the face-off X and go step by step, okay, this is what I need to do. Here's my technique. Just take a deep breath. You're going to get caught up and forget what you actually know. And then you're more likely to lose. You're more likely to just not do what you know best.
Sure.
And, there was many points within my playing career, like that one specifically or in college, where you have to reset. You have to just remember at the end of the day, you can do your job. You got to believe in yourself and just remember what you do and, your steps, and you'll get there.
Yeah. And did you feel that evolve over time? Like you said, like as a freshman, you're going up against Brennan at Cuse and, going through it. You took, I don't know the number. I didn't research the number, but I can't imagine how many draws you took in your career at Stony Brook. It was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was a lot. You played in some big tight games also.
Yeah.
So we worked you to death.
Yeah,
basically is what we did.
I loved it. I was very, it's very analytically driven in a way. I knew from a face-off standpoint. I mean, it caused some sleepless nights at school where, you look at it, it's a team sport.
Yep.
I knew that as a face-off guy, there was an individual aspect to it where I had to win my matchup. So I would go online after every week. Sunday would come around, usually Monday, they'd update the face-off rankings on the NCAA stat website.
Yep.
I would always look at it. I would have that on my computer. Where am I? How do I get up to the top? And, that was something that I started doing end of freshman year. I think I finished like 25th in the country at that point. And it gave me the confidence to say, okay, what did I always lived my life by a simple concept of if I believe I'm the best at what I'm doing, I most likely am. If I don't believe I'm the best at what I'm doing, then I'm most likely not.
Yeah.
And, I learned that. My father had told that to me when I was really young. He had, it was actually Jim Calhoun, who, former UConn basketball coach, very famous in there. He had gone to the company my father was working for. My father had him come in to talk to all of his sales reps and sales managers and motivate them.
How cool is that?
Really, this is one thing I remember from, I think I was in 6th grade. I was playing youth lacrosse, and my father grabbed me, and, he said, he's like, hey, Coach Calhoun came in, and he did a question answer with our sales guys. And one of the guys asked him, how do you get your team to win a national championship? And he said, Coach Calhoun said, easy. He's like, every freshman that I bring in, they had just won the national championship the year before. He's like, every freshman I bring in and every player, I bring them into my office consistently. And, I ask them, do you believe you're the best at what you do? And if they don't, I tell them, well, if you don't believe you're the best at what you do, then most likely you aren't. But if you do, then most likely you aren't. Same goes for your team. If you don't believe in your team and believe that you guys are the best team, then most likely you aren't. You have to believe in it. And that little term or, slogan or whatever, I took that to heart with thinking, screw it, anything's possible. There's another kid my age down in Greenwich, Connecticut that's working out, doing face-offs. Why can't I be better than him? And from a young age, I wanted to be the best face-off guy, in the country, in the world at one point. And that was a goal I had set and learned I need to set short-term goals and then all the different steps to get there. So always throughout back to college now, it was always a battle for me that I found healthy where I had a challenge and it was a mission to get to a certain point. So I had to figure out when I'm losing, how do I adjust? How do I train harder? How do I watch film a little bit more?
Yeah.
But that was a goal I set for myself. And, there's a message that I want kids to think about today is, you've got to believe in yourself and if you want to be the best at something, you can. But you're going to have to learn and understand the amount of work you have to put into it, and then you've got to believe you can do it. And then I think most likely you'll get there.
100%.
But it may be 10 times more work than, I might have to put in 10 times more work than Jimmy Montana out in Long Island just because he's that much better of a lacrosse player. But I'm going to find a way to outwork him on that point if I can.
Right.
I just got to believe in it.
Right. That's not equal. The amount of work someone needs to put in to reach a goal it's not equal.
Not at all.
I have to work harder than somebody else. Somebody else has to work harder than me. And just like you're saying, it's your point. It usually comes back to whether you believe or not, you're correct. If you believe you're the best, eventually you're going to play it out to at least put the work in to get there. But if you don't believe, then you're not even going to put the work in, and you're going to prove yourself right either way. And that's
exactly.
That's really to your
exactly.
point.
I think you learn so much along the way where there's different aspects of being, elite and very good at what you do. I learned when I was a sophomore, that was statistically the best year I had facing off in college.
Okay.
And then I remember, I had this surgery after, and I'm sitting at home, and I'm like, wait, I'm here. Now I've got a target on my back. I've never been here before. How am I going to deal with maintaining being up at this level? And, it's challenging, but that's also more fuel to your fire. And I think every player, it's not about, the term of like reaching your max potential. Because I don't know if you'll ever know that. I think you have to put the time in, and it's about what you want. Like I stopped playing.
I agree 100%.
After
Yep.
6 years in the MLL because I knew my time was done. I wasn't able to put that work in anymore, between doing my day job, running my lacrosse company. Something had to give.
Yep.
But I couldn't stay out there on a field and know that I was going to be able to perform at the level I need to be successful. And I think everyone has that point, whether it's a youth player, a high school player, college, or professional. And you have to learn to be okay with that. And you have to know if you can't give everything you can to reach your goals, then you need to adjust. You need to maybe change some of your goals. But you got to be honest. You got to respect yourself, and you got to know yourself in and out at that point.
Yeah, makes sense. A little self-awareness there goes a long way.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, man. Well, you gave amazing insights. It was an awesome conversation. You're the man. I really appreciate it.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, but before we go, just remind everybody about your club program, where they can find you, your website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So I run a lacrosse. As we've talked about, I run a club program in southeastern Connecticut. We're the CT Sharks Lacrosse Club. You can find us at shorelinelacrosse.com. We're on Instagram. We're also on Twitter as well. We have a lot of fun with the program. We're becoming an elite level program within Connecticut. But one thing I will say is for anyone that's out there right now, as a program, we understand right now is really tough. And, you can still put work in as a player. We're doing these wall ball challenges that they don't cost anything. It's totally free. You just have to sign up through the Sniper app. But if you want to win stuff, we're giving away gift cards, sticks, and our focus is keeping you guys busy, and it's open to anyone in
Nice.
Long Island, Connecticut, across the country.
Very cool.
Obviously talk to Coach Montana about how to do wall ball the correct way, because there's certain, things that could, hinder what you're doing when you're out there. But just the way to do it. So if anyone's interested, take a look at our website, take a look at our social media. We're doing these challenges, and we're going to keep doing them each week to provide you guys, players, with the opportunity to, go out there and win some stuff, but
That's great.
Get extra work in.
That's great. Well, Adam, I love our conversations, and I really appreciate your time today.
Coach, my pleasure. Thank you again for having me on, and best of luck with everything, and hope to talk to you soon. But thank you again for the opportunity to be on.
You've been listening to the Lead Domino podcast powered by MDP. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Reach out. We'd love to chat and learn more about you and how we can help. Visit us at mdplacrosse.com and follow us on Instagram at MDP Lacrosse Training and at Lead Domino Media. Until next time, respect, inspire, and support yourselves and each other.